I think it's fair to say that sort of a non-practitioner, someone who's not informed about the mining sector generally, when they hear conflict minerals, they immediately think of sort of the Blood Diamond movie, whether their engagement ring has that certificate of being conflict-free. The thing that the sector is so much more than that. It goes to your cell phone, your laptop, your battery, your car, any kind of metal that you're using, whether it's in the airplane that you're flying in or the car that you're driving.
When the Dodd-Frank Act was enacted, in my country it was like a shock. Everyone was just saying that, this law, American law, is going to cut thousands of livelihoods in the country because we have thousand miners who are getting the livelihood from the mining activities. So at that time, it was so complicated to believe that in 5 years, almost all treaties, tin, tungsten, tantalum material which come from the Great Lake region will be conflict-free. I didn't believe that. And now 5 years, more than 90% of treaties mineral which come from the region are conflict-free.
The OEMs downstream are asking for it. You might not realize it, but it carries a lot of weight for them to hear that OEMs, customers and suppliers, customers and consumers downstream are asking for those requirements to be met. So I believe that's kind of the next level of challenge that the entire supply chain has to meet, because you have to take a supply chain approach to this. A company on its own cannot pull this. It's true that the compliance process has its own cost, but the issue is more so about making sure that we are not creating some kind of disincentive in the marketplace, meaning if all market actors are requiring that every supply chain actor is compliant, then the cost is not creating an imbalance among different entities at different level of the supply chain. So that's the most important thing. Yes, there is cost, but if all actors at the same level are incurring the same cost, that doesn't turn it into a disadvantage for those that are compliant.
Well, I think besides just certifying conflict-free, there's a whole other ecosystem around mining and extractive industries that needs to be addressed. Often there's child labor involved. There's women who have to do both the family work and this type of work. It means that their kids can't go to school if they're mining. It means that women can't pay attention to family if they're mining. So being able to approach miners and mining communities as a complete ecosystem and dealing with all those types of things, education, safety, rights, making sure people can exercise their voice and advocate for themselves so it's a more holistic, equitable type of relationship. Those are some of the things left undone. Dodd-Frank, I think, with all of its faults and all of the criticism, and some of it is warranted, has led us down a path to look at traceability. It's opened up a path of companies and others to be concerned about all the other parts of a healthy, functioning ecosystem around extractives.
Mining in itself is inherently the unsustainable use of non-renewable resources, and we always have to remember that. When people dig minerals out of the earth, they have a brief opportunity to transform those minerals into something of more lasting value for themselves, their families, and the community. It's really about transformation from the resources in the earth to something more sustainable in terms of a future, livelihood options, education options. So one of the key things that we're really focusing on, and I think where we're going to see the most amount of change, is when we can focus on things like savings, better management of those resources, and the transformation that makes mining less of a sort of a snatch and grab sort of activity, but one which actually does contribute to long-term development.